ditch iMessage, ditch WhatsApp, and for the love of God, ditch SMS, ditch anything that is not end-to-end encrypted, and most specifically, use Signal or similar apps. These are the exact words from the United States government, who is now recommending people to use Signal and end-to-end encryption, specifically because everything else is much more insecure. It is exposing you to privacy threats, including foreign threat actors such as the People's Republic of China, who might be targeting you or pretty much anyone else in the United States, or this is applicable to any other country, and steal your information. This is not a dream, this is not made up, this is not a hoax, it's not fake news. It is coming specifically from the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA for short. It is a government document that has been published on December 18th, and it is laying out all the privacy and security recommendations that the government is issuing for all Americans and all users of iPhone and Android devices. This is an absolutely stunning development. It is a result of a major telecommunication attack that occurred in November 2024, and well, perhaps it occurred a lot sooner than this, but what the government admits to know is that the PRC affiliated threat actors and hacking groups were able to breach through the networks of telecommunication providers, and they were able to steal information from there. They are admitting that they were going after politicians and perhaps journalists or high target individuals, but I don't think that's just the case. I think if they were able to get into the telecommunication networks, they were stealing everything on everyone. And you might think that, well, it does not concern you that the Chinese government has your private information. This is not just a matter of the Chinese government. Anyone, literally anyone that gets into the telecommunication networks will get access to all of this information. The primary reason for this is that modern telecommunication networks are absolutely insecure. There is very little authentication, almost no encryption whatsoever, so the telecom providers have access to all of your SMS texts, all of your calls, the content of all of your calls too. They see where you go, where you live, where you work, who you meet with. They see your entire social graph. They are tracking that information pretty much indefinitely, very precisely, and with a profile that is specifically tied to you as an individual, because everyone has a phone number, and every phone-enabled device has additional hardware identifiers that you will never be able to obfuscate, legally at least, and that will build up a profile on every single individual in the country, and as I said, this is applicable everywhere in the world. So now the US government has issued several recommendations that they are telling people they should do, and it is very interesting that the very first recommendation, one of the very first things that they tell you to do is to use end-to-end encrypted communication, and in the first sentence they specifically call out Signal. Signal is a non-profit, free and open source end-to-end encrypted messaging app that is based in the United States, that's true, but it is heralded as the gold standard in secure and private messaging, and for good reasons, because Signal is securing your messages in a way that is virtually impossible to breach through by breaking the encryption algorithms. The cryptography of Signal is absolutely solid, like it is with many other options too, because the Signal protocol, which has been developed and implemented by the nonprofit organization behind Signal, has also been deployed and implemented into WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger and maybe some other services out there. But Signal does this really the best because they go out of the way to make sure that you are just a user of this app, that you are not a target of advertisers because it's a nonprofit. They don't have incentives to monetize your data or further consolidate information about your usage, etc., to make sure that they can make more money out of you. So therefore, even if WhatsApp is using Signal's protocol, WhatsApp is exposing you to a lot of metadata surveillance in ways that Signal is resistant to. Not to all of it, but to much of it. So it is absolutely surprising that the government is recommending Signal here. And they are doing this for the primary reason is that even if you could say that, well, iMessage is encrypted or Google Messages are encrypted if you use RSC, right? That may be true with a caveat that I will get to. But the government is telling you that you need to have a messaging protocol that works across different platforms, has clients for macOS, Windows, Linux, and mobile operating systems, including the iPhone and Android, and is not gonna lock you inside an ecosystem like all these other clients and messaging apps will. Because if you're messaging from iMessage or between iPhone and Android, you don't have end-to-end encryption. If you are messaging between sometimes different messaging apps on Android, you don't have encryption. You only have encryption with apps such as WhatsApp or Signal, but there are also other contenders such as Threema, Session, SimpleXChat, also Briar and Coach if you want to go through those extremes. But for the most normal people, Signal is going to be hands down the singular best option that pretty much anyone could choose. It is very user-friendly. You don't have to learn or do anything. There is no key exchange, nothing that you have to worry about. You just create your account with a phone number and that's it. You can immediately start messaging all of your other Signal contacts. And I highly recommend that you convert as many people as possible around you to use Signal, because it is really going to make a lot of information about you, about how you communicate with others and what you do with these communication apps, a lot more difficult to trace. It's going to be very obfuscated, especially if you use it with other additional privacy tools, such as using it on Graphene OS with Tor, the Onion router that is going to completely anonymize your traffic. But that's, if you really need that level of privacy. By the very least, please do install and use Signal. It's not perfect. It is not the most anonymous messenger out there. There are more extreme applications such as Briar that are doing this better, but Signal is being used by pretty much everyone who is in that high threat category, which includes journalists in the United States, in Europe, and in other countries around the world. It is recommended by Edward Snowden himself, who leaked the NSA documents about the mass surveillance all the way back in 2013. I have been using Signal ever since it was created, actually even before Signal was a thing, when it was called Text Secure. I was really into that back then. And also, Signal is heralded by politicians themselves in the European Union, which is now fighting end-to-end encryption, and they want to put in backdoors into messaging and scanning on device for CSAM and other stuff. Like, all these proposals are also being suggested in the UK, in Europe, in other countries, which is unfortunate. But the reality is that these people, everyone that is saying that we should not have end-to-end encryption, they are using Signal. So the fact that the United States government is acknowledging the situation that really we don't have anything better than Signal for the vast majority of people and for the vast majority of use cases suggests to me that there is a shift in the intelligence community, because the realization is what the security and privacy crowd has always been telling everyone, especially those that wanted to put backdoors into end-to-end encryption. And it was this. Well, you might say that your law enforcement and your government is benign and good, and you will only use the backdoor tools and on-device scanning for good things, for going after bad people, and not abusing that against innocent people.
You can't have 100% security and also then have 100% privacy and zero inconvenience.
But we have always been saying that there is no backdoor just for the good guys. It is impossible. If you build backdoor for your local police department or for law enforcement that you think is good, you will always leave that backdoor on for anyone else who would want to find that backdoor and abuse it just the same way. It is literally technically impossible to build backdoor just for the good guys. And now we have the most perfect and ideal clear case from the wild that there are foreign threat actors who are very well funded, extremely well sourced, highly efficient, they have limitless power, who are going to be going for these loopholes, who are going to be finding backdoors, they are going to be finding insecure communication, they're going to go after that, and they're going to steal everything. And I'm not going to argue with people who are going to say, I have nothing to hide from the Chinese government or the Russian government or other foreign threat actors. What do they have to gain from me? And I say nothing. They gain nothing from you. but they might gain something from the neighbor who you refuse to communicate with over secure communications because you are so stubborn and you're so self-centered that you think that you have nothing to hide, therefore no one else around you might have nothing to hide, because your neighbor might be an activist. Your neighbor might be someone who the foreign government might be targeting. They might be a refugee from that country. They might be fleeing persecution. They might be a journalist. They might be a whistleblower. By the way, have you noticed that how many whistleblowers this year and in the past have suffered from this unalivement thing, self-imposed unalivement? And I have to ask this question. Would that be the case if all of us were completely aware of the risks of insecure communications and we're all already using Signal so that people that actually wanted to, use Signal for when they actually need it would not have to jump through several hoops in order to convince people to start using secure communication, therefore alerting their potential advanced threat attackers and hackers? You have to realize that if we live in a society where we are not protecting ourselves, those that do need that level of protection stake out, and they become that much more of a target. If everyone in the United States was using Signal and they were encrypting their communication with keys that only they control and only they store on their devices, then we wouldn't have had this problem, because the Chinese government would come in, or any foreign threat actor would come in, they would steal the information, and they would never be able to decipher it, because modern encryption algorithms are mathematically unbreakable. We don't have, and we will never have, computational technology that will be able to break the currently encrypted information. In the future, when there is quantum computing, that might be different, but we don't have that right now, even though there is quantum-resistant encryption already being developed and deployed by VPN providers, by encrypted services, and by pretty much anyone who is already aware and wants to safeguard against future potential threats. That's how advanced cryptography works. And I also have to say that I've recently mentioned and noticed that my channel is getting PSYOP, psychological operation. It means that I have a lot of trolls and I think bots coming in my comments and spamming information that is literally there to dilute the discourse with hoaxes and disinformation and apathy towards protecting yourself. They're always going to be saying, well, if the service is encrypted, I know that's where the spooks hang out. Why do you have to worry about your privacy? What do you have to hide? Oh, there is nothing you can do. If they want to get you, they will always get you. You can only live in a cabin in the woods with no tech around you. There's nothing you can do about any of this. Don't believe any of these comments. Don't engage with them, or if you want to, troll them back, because they don't deserve our attention. These people are only here to sow doubt in what we know works, and encryption works. Encryption makes mass surveillance economically unfeasible, and that's the point that we should be striving towards. If there are targeted investigations under a proper judicial court approval and warranted, then I'm all for it, but I'm against these massive campaigns where we just have to accept that all of our information are going to be stolen and leaked and collected by government agencies all around the world for the supposed protection and national security interest. Now, this is the US government realizing that actually that has been a mistake. We shouldn't have spent decades convincing people that they have nothing to worry about, that they have nothing to fear if they have nothing to hide. Well, now, foreign governments are exploiting vulnerabilities in our systems because we refuse to patch them and make them more secure and private for everyone. This is a breaking news episode, so it's gonna be different from the regular stuff that I cover on my channel. I'm going to dive deeper into this document because it's a whole set of privacy recommendations by the US government. I'm also talking about all of this on my Patreon podcast, which any paid member will immediately access for just $2, $5, or $10, depending on how much of the back catalog you want to have access to. But if you only want to have access to my podcast for free with a couple of days delay, then it's fine. You can just join and listen to my podcast that way too. It's all fine. But if you want to support what I'm doing, please become a paid member. You can also give paid membership to others, which would be really great for those that cannot afford it. And it would help me make these videos sooner, more frequently. I could dedicate even more time to talking about stuff like this because it's really difficult. YouTube algorithm, I noticed, does not really like when I talk about national, state, government surveillance. They really don't like when I mention government agencies, the three-letter agencies, when I talk about Julian Assange, for instance, like, or Edward Snowden even. Many of these videos I noticed get demonetized and or shadow banned, which is very unfortunate because you do need to be informed. I'm the one that wants to inform you because I have the time, I've been privileged to be doing this, and I want to be doing this. So support me if you like what I do, and I'm gonna be doing this for as long as it is possible for me to do this. Thank you very much, have a good one, and goodbye.